Welcome to Franchise Marketing Radio, brought to you by SeoSamba. Comprehensive high-performing marketing solutions for mature and emerging franchise brands. To supercharge your franchise marketing, go to SeoSamba.com. That's SeoSamba.com.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Franchise Marketing Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today I got Mike McFall with me, and he is with BIGGBY COFFEE. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it, Lee.
Before we get too far into things, tell us about BIGGBY. How are you serving folks?
Well, so BIGGBY COFFEE, right now, we're a franchise, a retail coffee franchise. We are in 10 states, open in 10 states. We're developing in 2 more. Primarily, our stores are in the Midwest. We are Michigan, Northwest Ohio is where the majority of our stores are, and we're really starting to get traction in some other areas of the country, which we're excited about.
Now, how did BIGGBY come about?
We had one store in East Lansing, Michigan. We worked hard to build a second store in the same marketplace. And, you know, we were looking to grow and expand our brand, and we had real success with those first 2 stores. And so eventually what happened is we started getting phone calls from people who were interested in learning more about franchising with us. Well, we weren't a franchise. And so we had to kind of look into what the franchise business model was all about. And it didn't take us very long to be attracted to the business model of franchising. And it really fit well into, who my co-founder and I are as people. And that's how we started. And then that's how we ended up getting into franchising as well.
So now what drew you to the coffee business in the first place?
Well, for me as a person, what drew me into the coffee business is I love being a barista. So I started as a minimum wage barista in our very first store that my partner opened. And I loved serving coffee in the morning. I loved greeting people when they walked in the door. I loved engaging them in a way that put a little spring in their step in the morning, and just being a regular part of somebody's morning and having that engagement. I just love doing it, and I've always said that I'd love to go back and be a barista someday when I can retire from having to run the darn company.
Now, when people started coming up to you, that was obviously a clue that, hey, maybe we should franchise. When you were in the first store and you were doing the work, did you have this empire building kind of thought in the back of your head? Or was it like, hey, this is a great job, I love what I'm doing?
Well, it was a synergy between my partner and I, frankly. So, I was a barista. He was working on the second store. He approached me about becoming a manager of store number 2. And, I had other things I had going. I was on my way back to graduate school. And so the end result was that a conversation between Bob and I really led to us putting an agreement, a handshake agreement together on how to build 50 units. Our goal was 50 units when we first formed, and we've far surpassed that now. But that was originally we wanted an empire of 50.
And then, but you were considering franchising as the path to that empire, or were they going to be all kind of owned by you guys?
We didn't know. That probably sounds crazy, right? But we didn't know. We were aggressive. We were energetic. We were young, and we just. But then the franchising business model became clear to us, and that's when we decided to take that path. And for a long time, we had both company-owned units and we had franchised units. And it was through a relationship with Fred DeLuca from the Subway sandwich shop chain that he was interested in taking an equity stake in our business. And we talked to him for over a decade about that. But one of the times that we got together, he encouraged us to choose a business model, right? And we knew where he stood because Subway was 100% franchised at that point. And so it was 2006 that we made the decision to become the best franchisors we could be. We ended up selling our units that we owned, and we've been 100% franchised ever since.
Now, when you made that pivot to being a franchisor from being a coffee shop, how did that learning come about, and how did it go for you guys? Because that's a different business now. Like at one point, you're serving your local community and handing them, cups of coffee, and now you're a training and development and sales organization.
Well, I think the fundamentals. I've always said the fundamentals are the same. Today, what we do is we coach and mentor people in those fundamentals as opposed to doing them ourselves. And the fundamental success of a franchise business is that the unit level economics work. And so we have to coach our franchise owners through the process of getting their business to the point where the economics work for them. And if we can't do that, then we don't have a business either, right? So the basis of everything in the franchise business model is that the unit economics in the local community work, and the franchise owner in that local community is profitable. And if that's the case, then the franchisor will see success. There's never been a franchisor that's been successful in history that I'm aware of where the unit economics, the franchise owner and the community didn't make money. And so, it isn't to us, it's a very different mentality because you're coaching and mentoring, but you're coaching and mentoring on the fundamentals that made you successful as the retailer at the unit level. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, what about when you're in a space that has like kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the space as well?
You mean like Starbucks?
Well, I didn't want, this is all about BIGGBY. This is all about BIGGBY. It could be Starbucks. It could be, Dunkin' Donuts too. I mean, there's a lot of coffee as well.
True.
But
true. I've never spoken badly about Starbucks. I mean, they're a brilliant retailer. They've done an amazing job. It's one of the greatest retail rollouts in history. So, but I frankly think that having Starbucks as a competitor in a marketplace, it makes us sharper. It makes us better because they're very, very good at what they do. Same with Dunkin' Donuts. But I will say that I believe in the end that our business model, the franchise business model, is stronger than the Starbucks business model. When you go into one of the local communities that we're in, we have a local entrepreneur in that marketplace developing their business. And to me, that is much more powerful than a company-owned store with managers who are making salaries. And I know that. I've lived that. And people say to me all the time, how do you possibly compete with Starbucks? It's like, I compete with Starbucks because I've got an entrepreneur representing my brand. I've got somebody who's in there day in and day out building relationships and building community around their store, and that works. And it's a cup of coffee in the morning, and where's somebody going to go? They're going to go to the place that's engaged in their community, and they know the owner and so on. And that's the power of franchising to me. It really is.
Now, how do you kind of coach that relationship building and the importance of supporting the community and things like that, those intangibles?
The intangibles are hard to know up front. Similar to the conversation you and I were having before going on the air, but what we work on with people is we have tools in place to help you engage the community. We believe in supporting, not necessarily supporting community events with money, but supporting community events with your product, being present. I can't tell you how many 5Ks I've done in my life, right? Where I'm up at 4 a.m. brewing coffee, and I go in out into the community with all my coffee loaded up in my car, and I stand in a tent and I serve coffee all morning long. And that's the kind of thing that just entrepreneurs and business people do. And if that kind of stuff's a struggle for you, I think that business ownership is going to be a struggle for you. You need to be kind of a natural people person, for lack of a better term, in order to be able to build that community and build those relationships. And the relationships are key. They're absolutely critical.
Now, when you're looking at potential franchisees, are you looking for somebody that wants to be that guy you just described, maybe the social mayor that wants to be plugged in the community, that wants to be the owner of a BIGGBY coffee shop, or is it somebody you want that's going to open, 20 across the region?
I'm shocked that you use the term the local mayor, because that's a term we use all the time. And we want you to be the mayor, the unofficial mayor of your community, right? And if you can figure out how to do that and be that, we don't worry about whether you're going to be able to build a successful business. We don't sign multi-store contracts. So if you wanted to join up with us and you brought me a amazing management team, and you had capitalization of $3 million and you were ready to roll and build 15 of these things, I would say no to you. And I've said no to many people in that situation. I want somebody they have to commit to running the store themselves with an apron on out front 6 hours a day for the first year of operation. Now, we have many multi-unit operators, so you can turn that right there into a multi-unit business, and many of our owners have. But you have to first learn how to run the business, learn how to make one store profitable. And one of the primary ways we advocate for that is by telling people they've got to become the mayor of their community. So you said that, and it made my eyes open wide, because that's the term we use.
Now, when you're talking to a potential franchisee, who was that person? Is it the person that just recently retired? Is it the person that's frustrated maybe with their day job? Is it a husband and wife team? Like who's the good ideal prospect for you in terms of franchisee?
Well, I'll tell you, if I had an answer to that question, because it is so hard to predict who's going to be an amazing operator and who isn't. And I'm sure there's big franchise companies out there that have all kinds of personal profiling they do. But the majority of our people are people that have had a lifelong dream of owning their own business, and they want the support and the connectivity of being part of a franchise company and having us behind them and with them throughout the whole thing. Some of our ideal candidates, of course, are people that are displaced from corporate America, but also empty nesters have been a huge piece of our or part of our development. It's people who are, the children are, in their early 20s, they're leaving home, and they're in a financial position to do it, and they want something more out of their career than the day job they've had for the last 20 years. And so the empty nester community, that's really been and by the way, the empty nesters are great because they identify with our employees because they have children that age. And so and by the way, they've been running a business for the last 20 years, which has been their home. So, it's the empty nesters have been a real powerful part of our franchise development.
Now, how has the pandemic impacted your business in twofold? One, the business in the local markets, and also the business in terms of getting new franchisees going?
Well, if you would have told me April 1st that we'd be where we are today, I wouldn't have believed you, because the revenue at the store level is up dramatically over last year, and we're even performing beyond our budget, our pre-COVID budget. We're outperforming that, and that's been a really nice. I'm going to call it a surprise, because I wouldn't have predicted this. And then, in terms of people interested in franchising, some numbers. We do a monthly sales seminar, and a good sales seminar for us on a monthly basis was anywhere from 25 to 30, 35 people. Like, that would have been a great number. And we've had some up north of 50, 51 or 52. We did one last Wednesday with 127 people on it. And it's just, I wish I had an answer for you as to why, but it really has been, the last 60 days have been pretty mind-blowing for us from a growth perspective.
Yeah, it's an interesting time because there's so much uncertainty. I would imagine when there's more economic uncertainty, people want to kind of take things into their own hands and take some control, and then maybe they're opening their minds up to franchising, being a franchise owner.
Our biggest year ever was 2010, and that was just after the Great Recession. And so, I think you're right about that. People, they feel more secure owning their own business and being in control of that. And, what they need to do is they need to maintain the relationships with their customers, and that's all they got to do. And they'll have a successful business on their hands, right?
Right.
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Well, it's like you said, they can't wake up at 4 a.m. and make the coffee for the 5K. They know they can do that, as opposed to just hoping they don't get axed during the next reorg.
It's sad but true. It's sad but true, right? Like, if you've got your business, I teach entrepreneurship, and one of the things I always tell my students is, if you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter how tall you are, it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter where you were born. The only thing that matters is can you bring enough value to the marketplace that you get people walking into your store and buying cups of coffee, and then or whatever your product might be. And by the way, there's no limit to how many cups of coffee you can sell. Nobody can tell you can't sell 1 million cups coffee a year.
Right. And there is a sense of security in that you do have control over that. When you work for somebody, you might have one boss, but when you're an entrepreneur, every client's your boss. So you kind of you're spreading the risk around when you do that. Yeah. And we started in the business when I started as a barista at our first store. We were selling under 300 cups of coffee a day. And, today we're selling, I think, 65 to 70,000 cups of coffee a day. And I plan on taking that number to 1 million cups a day. And nobody in the world can tell me I can't do it. As long as I can convince the customer to come in and buy my cups of coffee, there is no limit to my upside. And I love that about entrepreneurship. Now, tell us about your book, Grind.
Yeah. So, I've done a lot of reading in this space of entrepreneurship, and I really, I'm fascinated by all of it, but I really struggled because I never found a book, to me anyway, that represented the true spirit of what it's like to be in a startup or to be an entrepreneur. And, all the books that I read are either, guys that, men and women that have, built companies and are flying around in the private jets with 9-figure net worths, looking back at startup through rose-colored glasses. And those are entertaining stories, but there's not a lot of value in that to me, right? The other side of the coin is you've got academics who have never done it, who are studying entrepreneurs. And I think they lack the ability to capture what the spirit of business startup is. So I wanted to write a book that was completely focused on the startup moment. So it's from the day you conceive the idea and commit to it to your very first day of cash flow. And that's all the book is about, is when you open a business, you are in a dead sprint to get to positive cash flow. And so I brought as much value as I could to the book. So when people read it, they can, I hope, walk away with 3 or 4 or 5 nuggets that will help them if they decide to go into business to get from the first day of conception to positive cash flow. And then once you're at positive cash flow, you got a whole bunch of other issues you got to deal with. But we got to get you to cash flow first.
And then the book has some kind of tips and tactics in order to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's the whole point. I hope anyway. I spent about 5 years of my life. So, the thing is, like, so the first chapter, and I won't go into detail on all of it, but the first chapter I wrote about due diligence. And the concept is due diligence on you as the entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs like to spend all kinds of time and energy and resources studying the marketplace and studying pricing strategies and competition and, all kinds of different things. I've never really heard anybody talk about that. You as the entrepreneur, you probably need to do some due diligence on you, your strengths, your weaknesses, and then you need to figure out how to complement and supplement your weaknesses in order to grow the business successfully. And to me, that is because you are the most important ingredient to whether your business is going to be successful or not.
Yeah,
and
you're the secret sauce. You have to realize you're the secret sauce. Without you, there's no business.
That's it. And so, and then of course, the title of my book, it was going to be what the title of chapter 2 is, which is Sell More Blank. And I'll just leave it at blank so I don't get in any trouble. But if you aren't a salesperson, if you don't wake up with the soul of a salesperson, and you're gonna struggle as being an entrepreneur, in my opinion. And it's the only deal breaker I have. I tell everybody, you can figure out how to do anything you need to do to make your business successful, but if you aren't going to be the one hawking your product, if you're not going to be the one pounding on the phones and grinding away making sales calls to grow your business, then I would give it a second thought as to whether you want to go ahead and move forward.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest gripes when it comes to higher education. They don't spend time on teaching people how to be salespeople, because sales is something, it doesn't matter what career you're going to go into. Everybody's selling something, and everybody's got a boss they got to serve one way or another. So the skills of a salesperson are not taught enough, and I don't think a lot of young people really understand what sales is.
Yeah, I tell you, I'd love to. I'll send you a copy of my book. I'd love to have you read chapter 2, because that's what chapter 2 is about. That's it. And if you aren't willing to commit yourself to selling, I tell you to keep your money in your savings account and take a nice vacation, because it's not going to work.
Amen to that. Without the salespeople, nobody eats.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Yeah. So, the book is, I think the book is good. I've gotten a lot of real good feedback on it. People are enjoying it. And so my website is grindthebook.com. And, if people are interested, you can order it there, and it's on Amazon, of course, and all the other places you can buy books. But, I think it's a good read, and I'd love to get people's feedback, on it as well.
Sounds good. Well, if somebody wanted to learn more about the franchise opportunity or find the nearest BIGGBY Coffee near them, what's the best coordinates?
Yeah. So again, just the website, biggby.com. It's B as in boy, I, G, B as in boy, Y.com. And that'll get you anything you need to know, and love to have people in and trying our latest drinks and our LTOs, and there's a lot going on inside of BIGGBY that's awesome.
Good stuff. Well, Mike, thank you for sharing your story today. I appreciate you and all the great work you're doing.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I do appreciate it. This is a great show.
All right. This is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Franchise Marketing Radio. Hey, man, you still